And there we go.
Okay, can everyone see my screen? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Um, so again, my name is Cheyenne Jock, and I'm the Deputy Director of Jobs for Best Buddies in Texas. Our jobs program, we are international, but for Texas, hopefully we can talk about some Texas specific things today and some resources. I'm going to overload you with information. There's probably going to be more information in here than you could probably ever want to know, but hopefully you'll find something valuable in it. I know that we can make this presentation available, whether it's through the YouTube, the recording on YouTube, or the presentation itself. If you need it, I'm happy to send it to you because I don't want you to fret because there is a lot of information in here and I don't want you to have to worry about taking notes. Feel free to screenshot the screen if you find something that you really want to take with you. So let's just jump right in. Our Best Buddies Jobs program works to help find jobs for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We know that having a job is so important. It helps people have an income, pay taxes, and support themselves. I always say that any goal that we've ever set in life, you either need money or you need skills to do it, right? And so we know that having a job can help people really meet their goals, whatever those goals may be. So the reason that our job even exists is because 82% of people with IDD do not have a job in the community. So this is not people who are bedridden. This is not people who don't want to work. These are people who want to work, who can work, who have the ability to work, but cannot get a job for whatever reason. And a lot of times it's either that jobs are inaccessible or they're just uneducated about what it means to have a disability at work. So that's where we come in to really help work with employers and help work with participants to make sure that they can be successful. So I'm going to throw out some key terms because, again, I find that it's really important when you are looking for employment for yourself or for your child. It helps to know the lingo, especially when it comes to resources in Texas. They can be really hard to come by. So I want you to know what to ask for. And what I have found is when you're in this world, there are a lot of terms that people use, but they never really tell you what they mean. So you're kind of left to your own reasoning. So I want to make sure that you are all prepared when you're having these conversations. So you'll hear us at Best Buddies, we say participant. If you're in the friendship program, you've heard them say buddies a lot, but in the jobs program, we use the term participant. A lot of other people, like the Texas workforce, they will say customer. Some people say client or consumer. Everyone has their own term, but know that that is a person who's receiving services. So as I present today, I'll use the term participant a lot. Just know that that's someone who has IDD who is receiving services through our programs. A job coach is an individual who's employed to help the person with the disabilities learn, accommodate, and perform their work duties. So we have lots of our job coaches on the call today, Maurice, David, Brittany. They are job coaches where that's our job. We go into the workplace with our participants and we help them learn the job. We make sure that they know exactly what they're responsible for and how to do it. And then we also have a job developer. So in our case at Best Buddies, these are the same people. In a lot of organizations, these are the same people. But the job developer is someone who works with a participant before they get a job to help make sure that they're ready. They're working on soft skills, they're working on resume development, interviews. They're also working with employers to make sure that it's a good match. And then in some cases, they hand it off once the person is hired, they hand it off to the job coach. But again, in Best Buddies, we like to have that continuation of services and be really consistent with our participants because we really get to know them. We spend a lot of time with them, we bond with them. So it makes sense for us to just have the job developer and the job coach be the same person. One thing that we love to do is do a workplace analysis or a work site visit, whatever you want to call it. But this is, and I think this is maybe the technical definition, because yes, we are looking for potential hazards of workplace violence, but we're also looking at, we go into workplaces, we evaluate what it sounds like. Is there a lot of noise? Is it really quiet? Is it really busy? Is it super fast paced? Is it inside? Is it outside? What are the lights like, from a sensory standpoint? How are the employees working together? What level of support is there? What kind of tasks would the person be doing? We are on the lookout for what kind of accommodations may be needed. So we really look at, we have a holistic view of the work site so we can make sure that when our participant goes to work there, that it's the best fit for them. We also, again, we look for accommodations. So these are modifications or adjustments to the job environment. A job coach is an accommodation. So we help our participants we advocate for them, and we help them advocate for themselves to identify accommodations and help the employer implement them. So when we see a need for an accommodation, we can step in, offer some advice, find what might work best for the participant, and then help the employer implement that as well. Then we have disclosure. So disclosing is a very personal choice, and this is just someone saying that they have a disability to their employer. It sounds, if you've never done that, it sounds pretty simple and pretty self-explanatory, but this is actually a really in-depth personal choice that every person with a disability will have to consider. Some people want to disclose, some people don't. And some people only want to partially disclose. For instance, I have someone who does not want to disclose his disability, but he does want to let his employer know that he has a history of seizures because it's medically necessary for him to have that piece of information out there. There are risks and benefits. As much as we don't want there to be risks involved, there are. So that's something else that we can help our participants go through and navigate that process to figure out, is this the right choice for them? Who should they tell? When should they tell them? Why do they need to tell them? Is there a need? There are a lot of aspects to cover when it comes to disclosure, but when you hear that term, that just means that you're telling the employer that you have a disability. Job carving is something that I personally love to do. We go into a work site and you might look at 4 or 5 job descriptions and take several tasks from each job description and create a job specifically for a person with disabilities. So this means that they're adding value, they are doing a real job, but this job has been carved out specifically for them. And I will actually show you an example of job carving in just a few minutes. Another thing that we do is we identify natural supports. So natural supports are supports that already exist naturally within a workplace or in someone's life to help them be successful. A job coach is not a natural support. It doesn't exist naturally. It's an accommodation. But for instance, natural supports for me, if I don't know something, if I am having trouble filling out a form, I don't know how to fill out the form, I have coworkers that I can go to and ask them for help. That's a natural support. They're already there. It already exists. Or if I walk outside in the morning to leave for work and I have a flat tire, I have, a husband or my mom who lives down the street who could take me to work. That's a natural support, something that's already in place. It's not an accommodation. It's something that already exists. So we want to make sure that natural supports that exist in a person's workplace are prepared to support a person with disabilities. We want to give them all the resources and help that they need so that they can be best prepared as well. So now let's talk about what types of jobs exist for people with IED. I will say, and a lot of reason I put a lot of this information in here in this presentation is because not everyone needs the same thing, right? And we all need different things to be successful. And some people, your child may be 14 and just starting to think about jobs. Your child may be in their 30s and looking for a long-term career. Wherever they fall on the spectrum, there is something for them. So I'm trying to give you a lot of ideas and a lot of options so that you know that it isn't one size fits all, that there is something for everyone. So the first thing I want to talk about is a sheltered workshop. So this is something that became really standard in the 1950s. They still exist today. They're a little bit controversial. So this is an example of one in Arizona where people are putting together rivets. And what a sheltered workshop is it is a workshop with people with disabilities. They're usually overseen by a direct care or support person, or sometimes a job coach. But what this is they are doing piecework. So they're putting together rivets in this case. In my hometown, there used to be a workshop where they would put together sunglasses. They're paid per piece that they do that day. I've also talked to someone recently. They have a sheltered workshop where they're putting bolts and screws into bags. So they have step-by-step instructions where they put this bolt in the bag, they put this, I don't know all the pieces, I don't know what they're called, but this part of the tool in the bag, they zip it, they put the sticker on it, and they put it in a box. So it's very rote, very repetitive work, and that works for a lot of people. However, Best Buddies does not support this model. We don't put people in sheltered workshops simply because, number one, it's not competitive, meaning they do not make at least minimum wage, and that is legal in Texas and in the United States for people to make less than minimum wage. So we want competitive jobs. These are not considered competitive, and they're not considered integrated because they're not working with people without disabilities as well. Again, this might work for some people if they really like rote repetitive work, if they need that direct supervision. However, again, you may walk away with $2 at the end of a really long day. Usually it's, I think for the sunglasses workshop, it was like something like you got paid 10 cents for every pair of sunglasses you put together that day. So there is some controversy around that. They can be very, they can exploit people with disabilities, but for some people, that's the right fit. It's just not a model that Best Buddies supports. So another option is called a work enclave. Again, this became standard in the 50s. You see this a lot with big businesses. This is an example at H&M. I know they have them at Walgreens. There are, I think, Bank of America and JP Morgan Chase, a lot of big banks, a lot of these big companies, especially if they have a publicized DEI initiative or disability initiative, they will have what's called a work enclave. So this is a smaller group, but it's people with disabilities working under the supervision of a job coach or an employee or supervisor of some sort, and they're all doing one job at the company, but they're working together as a group. So this is considered competitive because you can make decent money. They're mostly paid at least minimum wage. I've seen several that make, upwards of $15 an hour. I've also seen a lot of them be full-time positions. So it is considered competitive. However, it's not something that Best Buddies supports because it's not considered integrated, because they're not working with people without disabilities. They're all kept separate. Again, this works for some people if they need that direct supervision. It's just not the model that Best Buddies supports, but again, works for some people. So what I mean when I'm looking for jobs for our participants, we want them to be meaningful, we want them to be integrated, and we want them to be competitive. We go outside what the typical jobs might be. Typical jobs for people with disabilities are retail, fast food, customer service type jobs, which are great for some people, but we also know that that doesn't cover every person with a disability. Best Buddies has partnerships, which I'll show you some of our partners, but we have a reputation for finding some of those non-typical jobs in professional settings, big tech companies, more corporate type placements. But overall, we want it to be meaningful. We want it to match the person that we're working with, and we want it to match their skills, their strengths, their goals. We want it to be integrated, and we want it to be competitive. So what do I mean by competitive? They're working at least part-time. So that's average 14 to 16 hours a week. And I'll say the federal definition for competitive employment is that they're making at least minimum wage. I go one step further and say that they're making at least the same as anyone else working in that same position. For example, I had a participant who interviewed at Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A is pretty public with their wages. They pride themselves on paying, between $12 and $15 an hour, depending on your location. And my participant was offered a job making $7.25. So we know that that's not the same that everyone else there is making. So I wouldn't consider it competitive. And then I also say it's quote unquote a real job. So rolling silverware is not a job. Shredding paper is not a job. Those are part of a job, but they're not a competitive job in itself. And then again, by integrated, I mean working side by side people with and without disabilities. They're not kept separate. They're not kept in a separate location or in a group off by themselves. We want them to be able to move freely. We want them to have all of the same access to the benefits of working in that business that a person without disabilities has. So I want to show you this quick little clip of this video. This is Beth. She's the one on the right there in the pink shirt. She's one of our participants. And this, again, is a great example of job carving. So Trudy and Camry is there in the picture with Beth. They own a small business called The Confidence Shop, a small boutique. And they wanted to hire through Best Buddies, but they didn't know what they wanted to do or what the person would do. So I went in, I observed, I did the worksite analysis, the workplace analysis, really got a good feel of what it would be like to work at The Confidence Shop. And I saw all of these tasks that they were each doing that Beth would be really good at. She had experience doing it. She really liked it. She likes the behind the scenes stuff at retail shops. So processing the inventory, tagging things, steaming, organizing all of the clothes, making sure they're all folded really nice and neat. Those are the things that she really enjoyed. And I saw that Beth and, Trudy and Camry, they were doing that, as well as a couple of their other employees were doing all of these tasks, but they didn't really enjoy it. So we created a carved position for Beth so that she could do those things. So here's just a quick little video of Beth at work and an example of competitive and integrated employment in a carved position. So that is Beth. I love that video. She did such a good job with them and they love having her there. She is such a hard worker. Here are a few of our national partnerships that we have. So the benefit of working with Best Buddies is we're international, but we have a national team who works to develop these relationships with these big corporations. So not only have they agreed, yes, we want to be an inclusive employer and we want to hire Best Buddies participants, but they've also gone through extensive training with the Best Buddies team so that they know how to equitably manage a person with disabilities. They're open to providing accommodations and they're trained in doing so that they can help our participants be successful. TJX, it's one of our largest partners. So that's TJ Maxx, Home Goods and Marshalls. Mod Pizza is a great one. Helly is a great one. Holland and Knight, JLL. I'm not sure if JLL is on this screen, but they're a great partner. We are always working on new partnerships all across the state of Texas, across the country, but specifically in Texas, we're working on the Credit Union of Texas. We're working with Gucci. We are working with Amwins. We're working with Sun Communities. So we have a lot of partnerships in the works, which is really great because we have these partners that said, yes, we see the value in this. Yes, we want to invest our time. Oh, did we have a question? Okay. All right, so how do we do it? This is the Best Buddies jobs process. So we work with our individuals. We want to make sure that we understand their interests, their strengths, their challenges, their goals. We want to know everything about a person as much as we can so we can make sure we find the right fit. Then we create a resume, we practice interview skills, and then we find the jobs that match those individuals' skills and interests and abilities. We want to make sure that we set them up for success. So we don't want to put, Beth would have done horribly had I put her at Olive Garden. She had no interest in working in the food industry at all. So she would have hated it. Again, we want it to be meaningful to the person. So we really work hard to match the individual to the job. Then we offer support during the interview, onboarding, and training process. We help them to develop their interview or their elevator pitch. We walk them through the interview. We help them do all of that paperwork that comes with being a new hire. Doing the W-2 forms and the orientations. And then we are on site with them for their sometimes it's the first few shifts, sometimes it's the first few weeks. It depends on the person and the job that they're doing. But we provide that on-site training so that we can make sure they know exactly what they're doing, exactly how to do it and who to go to if they get stuck or if they get lost or they're not sure what to do. They know who to go to. Again, setting up those natural supports. And then we're going to fade out because we want them to be independent at work. So to be in the Best Buddies program, they do have to be able to work independently. That does not mean they have to be able to work independently to work. Just to be in the Best Buddies program, we do require that because we're a lean and mean team. So if we could be there all the time, we would love that. But because the way that we're set up, we provide the support in the beginning, but then we fade out. We never disappear. We're always checking in with the employer and with the participant to make sure things are still going smoothly. And there have been several times when I've had to jump back in and provide extra training. For instance, I was just at a job site last week. My participant has been employed there for about 1.5 years. And so she knows the job. She's really good. I don't need to be there very often, but her coworker left. The coworker that she was really comfortable with left and she got a new coworker. And so they're learning how to work together. And so I came back to provide some extra coaching. I also, will come back in, say it's always sometimes this is usually a big barrier when a manager leaves. and they get a new manager. So I'll come in and provide training for that new manager. So we never disappear. We're just not there on site forever. Now, the impact of our Best Buddies Jobs program, nationally, the average for a person working with IDD, they on average work about 14 to 15 hours a week. Nationally, our average is just above 20 hours, but in Texas, we're closer to 22. So we really pride ourselves on, again, making those competitive placements, because we want people who want to work, we want them to work, not just, an hour a week. And then the average wage for a person with IDD is between $9.45 and $9.75. Our national average is a little over $15 an hour. In Texas, we're around $12.50, which is still higher than the national average for an adult with IDD. But we're not at that $15 range yet, because we are in Texas. That number includes California, New York, DC, some of those more expensive areas. In the United States, we've made just over 1,000 placements, and we have about 300 in development. That means that they are working with job coaches right now to find the perfect employer, working on some of those soft skills to get ready to work. So we are really making impact in the United States, but then we are also in 11 other countries as well. So where do you start? So I want you guys to have some tangible steps that you can leave here with today, so that you can start, whether your child is, again, 14 and just into high school, just starting to think about what they want to be when they grow up, or whether they are, 45 and looking for a career that offers, retirement opportunities. So very first thing I would say to do is, if they're ready to look for paid employment, is connect with VR. So VR stands for vocational rehab, or vocational rehabilitation. You'll hear us call it Voc Rehab, VR. In Texas, that is the Texas Workforce Commission. I know that the Texas Workforce Commission is kind of a four-letter word. It is a government agency, and I understand that. It can be a lengthy process, so I would go ahead and get started now, because it can take a couple of months to get set up with them. However, if you can stick with it, they do have a lot of great resources, and I'll go into some of the programs that they offer. And I always tell people, if you can get through the application process, then it hands over to me, and I actually get paid to deal with that. So it's not on you as much as it is on us. So if you can get through that application process, we can help you through it. It can be tedious, lengthy, it can be a little bit invasive, but it is worth it in the end. And that's how we actually get our funding. That's how we're able to provide our services for free to all of our participants and our employers. So if you're not familiar, the federal government has money set aside for vocational rehab programs. They funnel it through the state. So again, it goes through the Texas Workforce Commission, and then the Texas Workforce Commission pays providers. We are a provider, so that's how we get funding for our jobs program. And it's typically free for individuals with physical or mental disabilities, or for hearing and vision impairment. There are some things for the jobs program, those are free services. They have other resources available where they might help you, get reimbursed or discount services. So I never like to say it's always free, but for the employment side, that is free. That's a service that they offer. So some of the available programs that they have, again, this is going to be a lot of information, but this is just for me to let you know that there's something for everyone here. So I'll go through these pretty quickly. But pre-ETS, pre-employment transition services. So we are on track to launch that through Best Buddies this year. It's not a service we provide yet, but we are on track to launch that in Dallas this year. So that's very exciting. But this is for students who are under the age of 21 who are interested in working. They need to develop some of those soft skills, really do some career exploration. These are it's done a lot of the times within a school program, but it can be done outside of school. But that's a really great program if you're in that 14 to 21 age range. We have PSAT, personal social adjustment training. This is training in personal health, hygiene, disability management, social skills, confidence, anxiety, all of those types of things, again, that help a person be more successful at work. Work adjustment training, this is for people who are already working, but maybe they need to work on some of their interpersonal skills, and that's done within a work setting. You have vocational adjustment training. This is one of my favorite things that I actually do is VAT. And it's kind of like pre-ETS, but it's for adults. So again, it's for people who are interested in working, but need a little bit of training before they can go to work. You can do, a year or longer of VAT classes. You can do one class, which might be, 5 or 6 weeks. So that can really be tailored to the person depending on what they need and what training they need. Some of the things that we cover: work ethic, job exploration, money management, disability disclosure, how to clock in and out at work, how to call in sick from work, how to read a check stub, what are deductions on our paycheck, all of those things that will help them be more successful when they go to work. And again, that can be really tailored to the person. I've had some people who only want to do one class, it's 5 or 6 weeks, and some people who've been in it for a year doing different classes. So that's a great option as well if they're not quite ready for work, but they know that that's going to be an end goal. Work experience, that is a placement, short term, less than 12 weeks. It can be a paid placement, an internship, or a volunteer. And it is designed to help someone go to work for a short amount of time so that they can build some experience and some skills and really determine if it's something that they enjoy. I've had people who've done this because they've never worked before and they really want to try some things out and do that exploration piece. I've also had someone who hadn't worked in 15-ish years, and she needed to brush up on some of her skills and professionalism and what it's like to work in an office environment and those types of things. So she did that. So that could be a good option as well. Project Search is not something that Best Buddies offers right now, but it is something that exists. It's a series of 3 12-week internships, and they are supported by a trainer or a teacher. This includes part of the time they're spent working, and the other half they are spent in the classroom learning. You have job placement. This is exactly what it sounds like. This is where we find a job and we place a person in a job. So again, we're working on those interview skills, those resumes, all of the pre-work, and then we are providing assistance to secure that job placement. Once they have the job, then they can do job skills training, and that's on the job support. So again, we are on the job for a little bit in the beginning, and then we fade, but that job skills training is to help them learn the skills that they need to keep the job. So job placement is help finding the job. Job skills training is to help them learn the skills to keep the job. If supported employment, so this is kind of like job placement and job skills training combined, a little more in depth. So some people who may need a little bit more support might want supported employment. This also includes a career exploration piece where they get to try out a couple of jobs, do some informational interviews, some work observations, things like that. So a little bit more pre-work, and then a little bit more support once they find a job. And then ASD supports. So this is skills. We would set a goal. The employment provider would set a goal, or more than one goal, in one of the following areas: communication and social skills, sensory, level of anxiety, obsessive or restrictive interest, or comorbidity. This is great for some people who, again, just need a little extra support in some of those areas. I've had someone do the ASD supports who she really struggled with anxiety. So we did a lot of extra training on how to manage her anxiety as it relates to work or just her personal life. I've also had people who have a hard time communicating. I had one guy who really wanted to quote movies all the time, and it really became a barrier in him getting a job because he was quoting movies and people didn't know what he was talking about in interviews. And so we had some support in training in, let's talk about how to communicate appropriately. Let's try to put some of those interests aside. I've also had a couple of people who struggled socially, where I had one person who really liked to tell people how to do things and that their way was wrong and his way was right. So we had to work on that. I had another person who really liked to be in everyone else's business. So those are really some of the things that we don't always focus on when it comes to employment, because you think about the interview, you think about the resume, you think about job accommodations, but sometimes we miss that step on some of those social and anxiety areas. So I will say I have had a counselor approve this for someone who did not have autism or ASD. I've had another counselor who said, no, it's only for people with ASD. So I think this depends on the counselor that you talk to, but if this is something that you could see yourself or your child needing, it's worth asking about, because you never know, they might approve it. Again, I had someone really struggled with social and obsessive and restrictive interests, but she didn't have a diagnosis of ASD, but they still approved it for her. Again, I know that the Texas workforce is kind of a four-letter word. People really don't like dealing with them. And I understand that. If you run into problems, here's some contact information. You can reach out. She's actually over Region 2 in the DFW area, but if you have problems, she can connect you to the right person. We have been told if someone has issues with the Texas workforce, maybe they've had a bad experience, they are hesitant to go through them again, to reach out to her because she can really help kind of mitigate that situation. And again, we can help you do that as well. So again, here are some other steps that you can take away today. So you can volunteer, find a volunteer placement. This can add experience to a resume, which is great. It builds hard and soft skills. It builds good habits because once you go to work, you have to wake up on time. You have to go to sleep at a reasonable hour. You have to make sure that you're eating healthy so that you're not loading your body up with junk and you feel bad when it comes to work. So it helps build and reinforce those good habits that we need. It's a great motivator. I was just doing a presentation over the weekend, and the presentation, we called it Don't Graduate to the Couch. That's what we want. We don't want people to go after they finish high school and sit on the couch. And I use this example. Couch is a terrible motivator. When I get home from work, I'm very strategic with what I do when I get home. I never sit down on the couch until I am done for the day, because once I sit down on the couch, that's it. I'm not going to cook dinner. I'm not going to clean the kitchen. I'm not going to do the laundry. We're done for the day. So we want to make sure that people stay motivated, and that volunteering is a great way to do that. It's also a safe place to learn and for them to fail and make mistakes. There are some risks involved with failing at a volunteer placement, but not as risky as it is when it's a paid job. So volunteering is a great way to give them that experience so that they can learn and fail. It builds it builds confidence. Okay, now everything under this line are things that we can help with. Once you've gone through the Texas workforce and you've chosen Best Buddies to be your provider, these are things that we can help with, but you can also do these things on your own, and I encourage you to. So identify strengths, weaknesses, and interests. So these are a couple of personality tests that I enjoy. They can really tell you a lot about who you are and who you work best with. It can also tell you about things to look out for. And it always makes me laugh because it always tells me to watch out because I can be stubborn and inflexible at times. I do not think that's true, but that's also a great way to kind of get to know yourself. I also love this website, ONET Online. This is a really cool website because you can go on there, do the interest test, where you select all of the different things that you're interested in, and it will help. Not only will it help match you to potential careers that you could find interesting, but it also breaks down each career. So it will tell you how much education or training that you need, tells you how much money you can expect to make, it tells you the outlook, what it takes to advance in that position, what a typical day looks like. So it gives you a lot of information about those careers, where some websites might just say, oh, you would be a great doctor. That's not super specific, but this will tell you would do great in the medical field. Here are 10 positions that you may enjoy within the medical field that all have varying education. And I think there are some filters on there. You can put how much education you're looking to get, because some people want to go get that bachelor's degree. Some people want to be done at high school. So I think that you can also filter that where it narrows down some of the options that it gives you. And then also ask people around you, teachers, parents, friends. They often see things in us that we don't see in ourselves. So that's a great way. Something to keep in mind is to ask them, hey, what do you think that I'm really good at? And then you can identify and eliminate potential jobs. And I'm just looking at the time, so I'm going to try to fly through the rest of these, okay? Job shadow and research. Again, research the jobs, be realistic. Go to the job descriptions. I love to look up the actual job descriptions that are posted so that you can see what a typical day looks like. But you can also ask to shadow, to learn about a person's typical day. Always ask them first. Obviously, you want to dress to fit in at the job, use your best manners, and take notes. Then we want to build a resume. I always say a resume is not to get the job. It is to get the interview. So you want to be brief and concise. You can always elaborate on it when you're in the interview. The biggest hurdle that my participants face is collecting all the information that you need, because we sit down to build a resume and all of a sudden they don't remember where they worked, when they worked there, they don't remember the supervisor's name or their phone number. And that information is so vital, not just for the resume, but for applications. So you want to take the time that's needed to really start to gather all that information. And if your child is just starting to work, maybe they're in their first job or they haven't worked yet, this is a great opportunity to start a document where you can keep all of this information. That way in 10 years, when they're looking for a new job and they maybe not remember some of these things, they have that information to go back on. Always ask for permission to use someone as a reference. That's something I always remind my participants of. I love to use the Microsoft Word templates. It makes it very easy. My trick is to use the Microsoft Word template, keep it as a Microsoft Word template so you can edit it as you need to, but then also save a copy as a PDF. That way it freezes everything on there. So if someone were to open it in a different application, it doesn't mess with the formatting. Include transferable skills, keep it brief, again, really concise. You may have multiple resumes. And this is just my personal pet peeve. As someone who builds a ton of resumes for people, I get participants to send me resumes. I have staff sending me resumes as a hiring manager. So when I go to search my computer for someone's resume and I have 10 documents just labeled resume.pdf, make sure it says first name, last name, resume. That way it stands out and the employer can easily find it. Create an elevator pitch. This is 60 to 90 seconds and it answers who you are, what do you do, where are you going, what do you want, and why should they connect you to someone? Why should they hire you? What's in it for them? So this is something that not just our participants, I think everyone struggles with this. The very first question that you're asked at an interview is, tell me about yourself, right? And sometimes we get all kinds of answers. People tell us all about their family history and how, their uncle was married, but then they had baby mama drama. And now, I've heard so many kinds of crazy stories when I say, tell me about yourself. This is the easiest way that I've found it. And I follow the acronym PAUSE. So the profile is who you are and what do you do. So my name is Cheyenne Jock. I'm the Deputy Director of Jobs for Best Buddies in Texas. The academic, say where you went to school. When you graduated, did you go to a trade school or college after high school? And if you didn't, maybe were you in a club or something that kind of adds to your experience. So maybe you were in the, Best Buddies chapter at school and you learned how to do public speaking or leadership skills. So you can add in things like that, your work experience or your volunteer experience, and then your skills. So this is a great way to keep it concise. And what I do for my participants is I have a document and it says PAWS all the way down, and it's just lines for them to write each section out, and they can take that with them to the interview so that when they say, tell me about yourself, they can read straight from that form. And then practice daily because you will use it a lot. Create a LinkedIn profile. You want to make sure that your location is accurate, especially if you're in a big city. So if you just put the DFW area, that could attract a lot of people to you. But if you know that you're trying to find a job in one specific area of Dallas, you may want to put that. That way, people know where you're looking for work. You want to select that you're open to work. Again, that lets people know that you're looking. You want to add a note when you connect. Don't just connect with random people, but maybe you can say something. Oh, I saw that you work at this industry. I would love to talk more about this. Or I saw that you posted about your friend getting a promotion at this bank. I would love to connect and talk more about what that looks like. You want to be active, post, share, comment, like all of the things, because as someone who goes on to LinkedIn often, and I am always looking for employees and people to connect with on LinkedIn, I'm looking for the people who are active because I'm not going to waste my time trying to reach out to someone who hasn't been on there in 6 months. You can check the job listings on LinkedIn. But what I will tell you is this next part, 70 to 80% of jobs are never made public. So it's very important for you to build your network. You want to get a piece of paper and list as many people as you can that you know that you may be able to reach out to. And then you also can attend networking events. I love taking participants to networking events. It's a great way for them to meet people, practice their elevator pitch, and kind of in a social setting where there's not as much pressure to perform as there is in an interview, but it's a great way to meet people. And then add anyone that you meet on LinkedIn and make sure that you follow up with them. You don't want to meet someone who's great, you have a great conversation with them, but then you never talk at all. So especially, I feel I'm really bad about this. Oh yeah, we should definitely, get coffee one day. And then I forget about it. Make sure that you follow up. It's a really important step. You want to have at least 2 interview outfits ready to go at all times, 2 full outfits, just in case one's in the wash. I had one of my ECs in Dallas the other day. She was talking to me. She was out and about, and an employer called her and said, hey, we need to do an interview right now. So they had to go right then to do the interview within just a few minutes. So have those interview outfits ready to go. You want to make sure to try them on. Number one, you want to practice putting them on, especially, men tying ties can be really difficult. Women making sure that they have all the appropriate undergarments. You want to try them on, practice getting dressed so that you can, how things fit. And I will say, the pandemic affected us all in different ways. So we want to make sure that those clothes still fit, bring them from the back of the closet to the front. We want to try them on often just to make sure that there's no stains or rips, or, maybe it needs to be ironed or steamed. Have them ready to go. It's very important. Then do mock interviews. I grew up in sports and in band, and they always said you perform like you practice. So we want to practice interviews a lot. It's a great confidence builder. You can ask friends and families and local business owners. This is my trick. My participants do mock interviews with me all the time. The first time it's a little rough. By the 5th, 6th time that we practice an interview, they know exactly what I'm going to ask. I know exactly what they're going to say. They're comfortable with me, which is great. But then they get into an interview and all of a sudden they're in front of a stranger and they get nervous and they kind of walk up a little bit. So practice. If you can partner with, if you have a friend of the family that maybe your child is not as comfortable with, do that, practice that. That way they can practice working through those nerves of interviewing with someone they don't actually know. You want to have really high standards. Again, you perform like you practice. So make sure whoever is interviewing that you make sure don't let them slide on certain things. If they say something inappropriate or if they do something inappropriate, you want to call them out on it, because we don't want them to get away with it in the practice and then go into an actual interview and do that. And then give a score. I have a worksheet that I use where I rank every category: how they dress, how they spoke, were they able to answer this question, how did they answer that question? And it helps break it down so I can see exactly where we need to work on things. So make sure that you give a score. If they're ready to start applying, here are some job boards. I use Indeed a lot. I use LinkedIn, again, not just for their job postings, but because of the network, I can see who knows who and what they're posting about. Less on the job board side of it, but more on the networking side. We also have a partnership with Inclusively. That's a job board specifically for people with disabilities. So it's a great way to find people who are already committed to the mission. And then really quickly, I will talk about how to start the conversation. If you've never talked about having a job before, these are great ways that you can start the conversation. So you can talk about your future plans. So for an example, you're hoping to get a promotion at work or learn a new skill. So you can ask your child, well, what are you planning to do in the next few years or the next few weeks or months or whatever it is? Once you start talking about the future, you're priming their brain to start thinking in that way. Okay. And the more you talk about those things now, when they get in front of people like me as a job coach, and I say, okay, where do you want to work? Now they already know because they've been thinking about the future for a while now. You can observe jobs when you're out and about with your child. So say you have to run by the bank before dinner. You might say, hey, I can see you working at a bank. You're really good with numbers. You want to make sure it's true. You don't want to give them a false confidence, but point out some of their skills. Or, one thing I always say, if you go to Olive Garden, you can look, there are 20 different jobs that exist within one Olive Garden. You have the people who are making the food, the person who created the recipes. My claim to fame is that I know the person who invented the Olive Garden breadstick. But you have people who are waiting on tables, people who are cleaning the tables, people who are cleaning the bathrooms, someone taking reservations, someone showing people to their tables, someone delivering the food. There are so many different jobs once you start actually looking. So you can say, I want to work at a restaurant. Cool. What do you want to do in a restaurant? Look at all the different options that are there. Relate jobs to other goals. So say your neighbor gets a new car and you notice it and your child says, wow, that's a cool car. You might say, it is a cool car. What kind of car would you drive if you could drive any car? And wow, what kind of job would you have to make those kinds of payments? Where would you be driving your car to? What does your life look like in the future? Let them help you with your goals. So you have an interview coming up. Let your child ask you questions to help you prepare, and then give them a chance to practice as well. You can also model the behavior. So say you are trying to pick out an outfit, you have a presentation, let them help you pick out an outfit. That is, while it's not directly related to an employment goal, those types of behaviors that they are watching you perform and helping you with, it's going to help prime their brain. So when they are looking for employment, they already have the skills in place. Make it a game. This is my kids' favorite thing to do. Is if you're stuck in traffic, we play Would You Rather all the time. Would you rather be a vet or a human doctor? Would you rather work at a desk, or would you rather work with your hand, inside or outside? Would you rather work at a bakery or a retail store? Once you start asking those questions, then you can ask why. What about that is appealing to you? So we have some frequently asked questions here, which I'm happy to answer, but I wanted to show you these resources, how to start a VR case, how to find a supported employment provider like Best Buddies near you, Ticket to Work program if you're interested in getting off of benefits. The Job Accommodation Network is a whole website dedicated to accommodations, inclusively already talked about. Lots of great information on here. And then you also have my contact information. So before we're out of time, I did want to open it up to any questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Okay.
I did not see any questions in the chat. So like Cheyenne mentioned, if anybody has any questions, you want to come off mute and we can kind of open this up. No, there was a lot of information.
Yeah, I know it's a little overwhelming. That's a lot of information, but I want to give you as much as I could in the short amount of time.
So I do have a question. What about the Social Security that the kids get, and with making or working 20 hours a week, that's quite a bit of money,
right?
So how does that play into it?
So I will preface this by saying I am not qualified or legally able to give you any kind of benefits information. Okay, you don't want me to give you any advice in that area.
Gotcha.
What I will tell you is that if you go to the Texas Workforce, they have benefits counselors there, or you can look up CWIC in the area, CWIC, Certified Work Incentives Counselor, I believe is what that stands for.
Okay.
That they will be able to look at your case specifically and tell you, depending on your goals, if they're looking to get off of benefits, Ticket to Work is a great program. We have some people who are working full time, making $25 an hour. So they're making way more than they ever have with their benefits. But the Ticket to Work program kind of puts a pin in those benefits so that they don't disappear. They're just on hold. That way, if they were to lose their job, they wouldn't have to go through the reapplication process, which would take years. It just kind of puts a pin on it and puts it on hold. So if that's something that someone's interested in, they're interested in making an actual living at their job, and the Ticket to Work program could be a good option. But otherwise, if you work with a counselor and they say stay under this amount of money, our team is also really good at advocating for that.
Okay. Yeah, because that's where we would be
And that's usually the biggest concern that parents have. It typically works in your favor to go to work because you typically will gain more money going to work than you would on benefits. But we also know that people rely on those benefits, so we don't want to take them away entirely. And it's very personal, so I would definitely recommend talking to a benefits counselor.
Okay. I'm in on the Zoom for the whole financial thing as well. So that'll be in a few weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say, we do have a parent session coming up. I think it's the last one. It's specifically on Social Security income and benefits. So
yes, no, I've signed up for all. So
awesome. Okay, great. And then I think Maggie, did you have a question?
Hi, I'm a parent too. I'm not just from the ARC. And I have a son who just went through the whole application process for Texas Workforce Commission. So, and everything's like
Yes,
set
on the
for
same
him.
page. We have a 90-day money-back guarantee, and you'll get that in writing.
And I'm wondering, do I have to
Okay.
request from his case
All right, so
manager?
Okay,
to-
good. Check your spam
Sorry,
folder.
can we make sure that everyone is
Yeah,
muted?
I'm trying to
Check
mute.
your spam folder to
Okay.
make sure that,
I'm not sure.
that you
why.
received something from, it should be from Client Care at FCG LLC, because it looks like it went out already. So if you don't see it right away, it's probably in your spam folder
apologize.
or promotions tab. Another one with Gmail, they have a tab called promotions. Try there.
Lauren, I don't know if Lauren is still on here. For some reason, it's not
You
letting
see it?
this.
Mhm.
So I apologize.
Okay.
So do I just need to request that we get,
Provider in mind, whether it's Best Buddies or someone else, you can let them know that, and then they will send us the referral.
okay, and will we be able to see this slideshow after this presentation?
Yeah, I think Victoria said that she was going to record it and put it on
Okay.
YouTube. But if there's something specific that you want more information about, feel free. If someone will just put my email in the chat, you can reach out to me directly and I can give you more
Okay.
information or direct you to the right resource.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, we will be sending this out. I'm going to, so we have a Best Buddies YouTube account. The goal is for us to upload all of these recordings to the YouTube and kind of create a parent session playlist so you can go back as you sign up for these different parent sessions and things like that. So they're all in one space. But like Cheyenne mentioned, she's also going to give me access to the physical presentation. So we'll send that out as well. So you'll have the presentation if you want the information, and then you can look back at the recording if there was a question or something that Cheyenne said that you kind of want to revisit. So do we have any more questions before? Because I know it's 1 o'clock now, so, and everybody's very busy. If we don't have any more questions, I just want to say thank you to everybody that joins. And just out of curiosity, I know we're at time, but I know we have some parents on here, but we might also have some teachers. So if anybody wants to put in the chat who you are in this world, just curious if we have parents, teachers, employers, coaches, anything like that. And then additionally, once we send this out, I'm sure you all have my email as it's attached to the parent sessions online. But if you have any other topics that you might be interested in or something you would like us to explore for a future session, please let us know. We're open to suggestions. We obviously want to provide you the resources that you're looking for. So if you have an idea, please let us know. And again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me or Cheyenne directly if it's about employment. So. Alrighty, well, if that's that, I will end this recording and be on the lookout for an email from me with this follow-up presentation and the recording from today's session. And I hope you all have a great day and hopefully we'll see you on another session coming up soon.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
all so much.